Hey, this is Sam Stone with CBR at New York Comic Con 2022, here with Janet Varney and Dante Basco of Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender fame, here promoting Season 2 of Avatar, Braving the Elements, available on all major podcast platforms, and of course, talking about all things Avatar in the middle of Season 2. Guys, thanks for taking the time. How y'all been?
Good to see you, Sam.
Sam, thanks for bringing a prop. Really
yes,
appreciate it.
And as a testament to the popularity of Avatar, this was the last one available at the Midtown booth. So
Very cool. Nice get.
Everybody's digging it, and this is day one of the con. But yeah, so here we are. It's season 2 of Braving the Elements. Now that you've kind of set a formula and a structure for the show, how has it been doing the podcast, like firing on all cylinders, a season and a half in?
I'm a podcaster. Janet has made me an official podcaster.
That's right. That's right.
And it feels good.
That's right. This time last year, he said the same thing, but I was like, I'm a podcaster? And now it's like, I'm a podcaster.
Now I'm part of an award-winning podcast.
That's right. That's right. Now, it's been so great. And, you know, just the experience of doing this con last year, of course, New York is always an amazing group. It's always an amazing audience. They know the show. They love the show. And by that I mean the shows, Avatar, Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra, but they didn't necessarily know the podcast. And just our experience of doing live events between these two cons has been amazing. Like,
wild.
It used to be like a third of the people knew we had a podcast. Now everyone knows we have a podcast.
It's wild because last year was the first live podcast we ever did, and it's also the first podcast that we actually did in the same
just
room.
Together.
And so to see it kind of grow over the last year and just to be able to really be with the audience in person and see everyone that's been listening to the show, following the show, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's very emotional, you know, because it's such a great fandom.
I mean, to that point, I love how the podcast show, has incorporated more and more of the fandom. You've got the trivia games, you've got the live shows. How is it kind of like leaning? And I feel like a fan element can always be a little unpredictable when you're doing a podcast. Right. So how has that been?
Well, luckily we have Nickelodeon behind us, and that's our sort of family. And so everybody sort of supports each other, and, you know, we have an amazing person in casting who actually is like, you know, a lot of people have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in social media, like who's talking about the show, what are they saying about it, what's their take on it. And so we kind of have, you know, by the time we get somebody on the show,
right,
we know they're going to be totally awesome.
Yeah, it's such a great fan base and so intelligent. Everyone's thinking so much about the show and certain elements, and they enlighten us on certain perspectives of the show.
Totally.
So it's been really wonderful that way. And you know, over the last few years, me and Jen have both been through Comic-Cons all over the world, really. Yeah. And so we've been engaging with the fan base all over the place and having these conversations. So it's great to bring them to our podcast and have them in the podcast.
For sure. And I got to be honest, we always feel like we're the ones who don't know everything.
This is true.
So when we get a question that stumps a super fan,
it's crazy.
I hate to say I enjoy it, but it makes me feel a little better because often we're the ones that are like,
although less and less. Like we're in our second year in our doctorate degree program of Avatar.
If he starts asking people to call him Professor Basco,
soon.
It's okay to say no.
You
can still say no.
There's got to be an honorary one. I mean, you guys just did like the library episode, so.
Yeah, it's true. We just did.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Very true.
So to that point, I mean, you were talking about guests, and when you have guests like CJU, speaking of the library thing, and you mentioned the insights. What insights do they bring that just kind of like third eye you, where you're like, oh, I didn't know that about Avatar before? Like, what kind of like new perspectives does it bring to the show?
Oh, Phil Yu. Sorry. Yeah, Phil Yu, Angry Asian Man.
Phil Yu, yes.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like what Phil Yu, Angry Asian Man, you know, has a perspective as being a big voice in the Asian American community and really discussing it from that perspective, which is phenomenal. And it's one of those things that we welcome a lot of guests to go like, well, what did it mean to you? How did you see it in your expertise? And that's the great thing about Avatar is like a lot of people coming from different perspectives, whatever their jobs or whatever where they're coming from, they have a specific point of view about the show. And it's been wonderful. We've had like Native Americans come on the show to talk about that perspective.
Yeah, McGizzy Pensano talking about like
Indigenous
the experience
people,
of rite of passage in Bato of the Water Tribe. Yeah, I feel like we need a little button. I've already said we need a button on the show where it just plays a lot happens in this episode, because I say that so often, we might as well just have it like built in. We also need a button of at least one of us saying, I'm so glad you said that. Or I'm so glad you brought that up. I never thought about that.
Totally.
That happens like every single guest.
Yeah, I mean, and something, speaking of a lot happening in every single episode, the big theme, I think, in season 2 is that escalated quickly. It escalates
Yes.
so much.
sure.
Like, season 1 was about establishing the
Yes.
world and the characters. How is it kind of like seeing how, like, surprisingly mature and tragic season 2 can get?
Sure. Well, I mean, now we're in Ba Sing Se, right? And so
Yes.
we very quickly find out that the City of Walls and Secrets indeed has many walls and many secrets, and it's
There's some
gets a little
shadiness
grim.
going on. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some
for
shadiness going
sure.
on. And then, of course, Jet's back. Mm-hmm. One of my
I'm
favorite
glad you managed to
characters.
shoehorn Jet into this
Yeah,
conversation.
Jet's
Always
back,
gotta
you
talk
guys.
about Jet.
Back to Jet.
Well, you know, Professor Bosco, if I may.
Yes.
Do you
Here we go.
do you all take notes as you watch every episode?
I do.
Oh yeah.
If you look at my pad, I have like all these things I want to talk about.
Yeah, I can tell, because there's definitely stuff I'm like, there's no way he just remembered that randomly.
Yeah.
He notices we have those share me the details moments where we make sure to
Right.
to tuck in that stuff that's like, and I actually noticed this for the first time, because I'm sure that happens to you, Sam, too, where like every single time you watch it, you see something new. Whether it's tiny or big or thematic, it's always new.
Well, and for me, there was always that degree of separation, like as a fan. So it was like, okay, like I'm curious how it is knowing the people that like made it, like knowing like the people behind
This
the
is
scenes.
music to our
Totally.
hearts. Everything you're saying right now is why we started the podcast.
Yeah, like so now that since having that insider knowledge, like and seeing like, oh, this is what they were doing with that story, or this is what they were doing with this narrative beat, like. How is it kind of having that kind of like inside baseball perspective on the whole
It's great. I mean, it's always great if our, our two dads, Mike or Brian, are with us, because we do ask them, like, hey, what about this? And what's great is sometimes they have a feeling about it, sometimes they don't. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. I never really thought of it that
sometimes they're
way.
like, wow, that's a really good question. Like, yeah.
Right. Or the music. It's
Yeah.
crazy how a lot of the music we talk about, how they came up with certain things or
Yeah.
how they thought about it.
Or
You're like,
Ben, like finding out what sound, what instrument is
Right.
making a certain sound for sound effects, stuff like that. No, it's great, and we do a lot of cons together, and we do panels together. And now we won't like people ask us questions about our characters or our specific series,
Right.
and then we'll just like go down a rabbit hole of Avatar and be like, but that actually reminds me, when Aunt Wu, and we're just like,
Exactly.
what were we talking about?
And then of course it's great having the actors because their memories of the stories and it's been so many years ago. For Michaela, she was a kid. She was like, I was 12. I was like, oh, okay.
I think I was in my 20s, but in regard to that, like as Avatar has become a generational thing, what constants are there with the fans, and what kind of new things do you see from the new generation of fans?
Sure. Well, it's interesting for me just knowing that Korra and Avatar are available at the same time on certain platforms. Sometimes people watch them out of order, or they just go straight from one to the other. So they didn't have that gap of like wondering what was going to be happening and like, that same sort of experience, which is actually really cool. It's really fun to have people go like, oh, I got to know both shows at the same time,
Right. And I think with the constants with the fans that we meet with both these shows is this consciousness. It's like a fan base that has this kind of like consciousness of compassion. I mean, they love the characters, they
empathetic,
love what's going on,
thoughtful.
but yeah, the balance of the world, keeping the world in balance, and the
Yeah.
idea of injustices or trying
Yeah.
to like I can't explain it. I don't know what the word
No,
is.
but it's so good because it's that kind of experience where, fandom, if you love something and you're passionate about it, that tends to cause people to want to debate over stuff, and you
Right.
see that in all fandoms. But I feel like we have the kind of fandom where if someone says something that's like a little too harsh, someone will be like, I don't think Aang would like that you said that. And it shuts you down so
All
fast.
right.
You see somebody go like, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, like, it's so wonderful.
Cora, on the other hand, wouldn't mind you saying that.
I mean, listen, she might be okay with it.
She might be okay with it.
That's refreshing from somebody that deals with a lot of different fandoms.
For sure.
But I'm curious because you mentioned both Avatar and Korra being on the same platform. At the same time, we've got Netflix doing a live action Avatar. As somebody that has now studied Avatar on a weekly basis, what is the secret sauce that you hope is key to a live action adaptation of that world?
We don't know.
We really don't know.
I
We
mean-
just live in we live in the animated
Yeah.
world so much.
We don't know the secret sauce. It's one of those weird things in Hollywood. No one knows what the secret sauce is to anything. If they knew the secret sauce, they would be manufacturing a lot more
Yeah.
than they do.
Yeah.
But it's there to study and kind of be.
Yeah.
and to
You
get
hope
something from.
anything. You hope anything that you watch or like has heart behind it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so we just wish everybody the best.
Well, what is your what has always been your North Star for Zuko or for Korra?
Oh boy.
North Star. I mean,
His North Star is obviously honor.
obviously honor. But I think Zuko's thing was always just trying to do the right thing. But what you realize, as you're older and you watch, it's like the right thing changes. It's not like what you think is right today. You may look back 10 years from now and go, "Oh, that was totally wrong." But Zuko never is trying to do wrong. He's always trying to do right.
And I would say that Korra is never trying to do wrong. She's always trying to do right. It's like as you mature, you realize that the right thing changes.
It
and maybe you
changes.
were going about trying to do the right thing in the wrong way. It's almost like,
There you go.
Well, one of the recurring observations that you've had this season is everybody thinks they're doing the right thing on some level. I mean, there's like Azula who's like maybe just chaos.
yeah,
but
the
like
chaos element.
yeah, but everybody feels like they're doing like the right thing. Like having that kind of that perspective, would you have changed how you approach these roles years later?
Oh man,
No.
I think that's what's so great about it. When you have characters that, for their reasons and their motivations, they feel compelled to push forward and they feel like it's the right thing to do. That's what makes complicated, great layered storytelling, right? Is understanding that there is no all bad or all good.
Right.
Maybe a little chaos. With certain characters, but yeah, that it's complicated and that people come from where they come from, and that you have to sort of understand that even if you don't agree with it.
Totally. I mean, that was very eloquent.
Thank you.
Very Avatar-ish.
Thank you. I think Avatar Aang would appreciate you saying
I think
that.
so. Okay.
Is there any are there any really heartbreaking episodes that are coming up either for Korra?
Sam.
That
Well,
you
we
just-
just-
Korra, we barely got. We haven't
we
even
just-
got to Appa's Lost Days
Yeah,
yet.
we just passed a Tales of Ba Sing Se, which is a tearjerker for
I
everybody.
don't know why I thought I would get through that recording without
I know,
crying.
she was
I was like,
this is
I
the
think
thing,
I cried
doing
my
a
last year.
podcast
I
with
cannot.
Janet Varney.
I can't.
She's going to cry sooner or later.
I thought maybe this will be the one where I'm dry-eyed because I cry over the tiniest things in other episodes that no one cries over. So maybe this will be the one. No,
No,
I
no,
totally
no.
fell apart as usual.
So emotional. But there's so many. Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. So we know we have more tears to come, but in a good way.
In a good way.
Well, that's a heck of a tease, and I think that's our time. This is Sam Stone with CBR at New York Comic Con 2022, here with Janet Varney and Dante Basco, talking all things Avatar and Legend of Korra. You can catch Braving the Elements on any major podcast platform. Guys, thanks again for taking the time.
Sam,
Thank
great
you.
to see you again.
It was a pleasure.